What's happening, guys? Landon here with Late Model Restoration, and today I'm going to be breaking down and installing SVE's redesigned rear control arms fitting your 1979 through 2004 solid axle equipped Mustang. SVE's tubular rear upper and lower control arms have recently been updated to feature stronger welds and bushings that respond better to axle movement. These kits are still offered in a black and red powder coat, will help provide a firmer launch, and are strong enough to allow for removal of the quad shock. These control arms are a perfect budget-friendly upgrade for those that are looking for an improvement over the stock stamped arms. Keep in mind, these rear control arms are designed to support cars with up to 400 horsepower. The bushings are now made from a natural rubber compound to perform great, yet still retain a smooth ride versus the previously used poly bushings. The material is stiffer than stock, and the best part, they don't require any additional grease, which is why these control arms no longer have grease fittings. Prior to the installation of these SVE rear control arms, the bushings must be fully coated with the included grease and that grease only. The use of any other grease or lubricant will void any bushing related warranty. All of the needed hardware is included in the box, along with the larger bolts, nuts, washers, and sleeves for use in 99 to 04 Mustangs. Well, you're probably wondering, what's the difference? 79 through 98 cars used a smaller diameter bolt for the rear lower control arm than the 99 to 04 cars. However, the rear upper control arm was the same for all 79 to 04 solid axle Mustangs. If you guys want to check out some of the frequently asked questions on these SVE rear control arms, click one of the links in the video description to get you back over to lmr.com if you're not already there. Well, fellas, I'm going to get this 1990 convertible Fox in the air and show you the detailed steps on installing a set of SVE rear control arms. One other important detail before we begin. Like I stated previously, 99 through 04 Mustangs used a 14mm bolt in the lower control arm. With that being said, those bolts will have a torque spec of 90 pound-feet. Now, since the 99 through 04 upper and 79 through 98 upper and lower rear control arms utilize a 12mm bolt, those will have a torque spec of 60 pound-feet. To begin installation, place the car on a lift or jack stands. Remove the rear wheels. Start by removing the sway bar hardware if equipped. There will be 2 bolts on each rear control arm. Remove the sway bar from the car. Support the rear end with a jack or pole jack. Remove the lower shock hardware on both the driver and passenger side with a 15mm ratchet wrench on the bolt and an 18mm socket on the nut. Now you can lower the rear end and remove the springs from the car. Remove the lower control arm bolts on the axle side with an 18mm open-end wrench and an 18mm socket. Remove the lower control arm bolts on the chassis side with the same combo, and then remove the control arm from the car. Do the same for the other side. To prep the bushings, sleeves, and new control arms for installation, begin by applying a decent amount of the included grease. Completely cover all areas of the bushing, the outside of the sleeves, and the inside of the control arm where the bushings will be installed. Install the bushings into both lower control arms. Do the same for the rear upper control arms as well. Except there will be 4 bushings that are shorter than the rest. These are for the upper arms. Before installing the new rear lower control arm, thoroughly clean the mounting areas with brake clean. Be sure and apply enough grease to the outside of the bushings. Slide the SVE lower control arm into place and then install the hardware. If you own a 1999 to 2004 Mustang, be sure and use the larger sleeves and hardware for the lower control arms. Slide a washer over the bolt and then place it through the control arm and chassis. Slide another washer over the bolt and then finger tighten the nut. Swing the arm up and into the axle. A dead blow or pry bar may be helpful when positioning the lower arm into place. Install the hardware just like you did for the chassis side and finger tighten. Snug down the hardware and then do the same for the other side. Moving to the rear upper control arms, remove the hardware securing the control arm to the axle and chassis. Remove the arm from the car and clean the inside of the upper torque box with brake clean. Again, be sure you applied enough grease to the outside of the bushings. Position the upper arm into place with the open part on the axle side facing down toward the axle bushing. Install the hardware the same way as the lower arms and snug it down, but do not fully tighten. Line up the holes in the upper arm and axle bushing. A screwdriver will be helpful when doing this. Install the hardware and snug it down, but do not fully tighten. Do the same for the other side. Reinstall the springs and isolators. Be sure the lower pigtail on the spring is facing toward the rear of the car and centered on the spring perch. Preload the suspension with your jack or pole jack and torque the upper control arms to 60 pound-feet. Torque the chassis side lower control arm hardware to 60 pound-feet if you own a 79 to 98 Mustang and 90 pound-feet if you own a 1999 to 2004 Mustang. Reinstall the lower shock hardware, but do not fully tighten. If you still have a factory sway bar, reverse the orientation of the speed clips. Reposition the sway bar and torque the bolts to 41 pound-feet. Be sure and push up on the sway bar before you tighten it down. Reinstall your wheels and get the car on the ground. Fully tighten the lower shock hardware. Torque the lower control arm axle side hardware to 60 pound-feet for 79 to 98 Mustangs and 90 pound-feet for 99 to 04 Mustangs. As far as installation goes, guys, allow yourself around 4 hours from start to finish. I would recommend the assistance from a buddy just to make things a little bit easier on yourself. Remember, do not over tighten the control arm hardware and use the provided grease and that grease only. If you would like to see more install videos like this one for your Mustang, then go ahead and hit the subscribe button. That way you can receive all of our latest video updates here on our YouTube channel. As always, guys, go ahead and head back over to the site and grab a set of SVE rear control arms for your 79 to 04 Mustang at LMR.com.